What's going on, ChavezzSlovakia? We're here to watch Lindsay Nikole video about weevils, wizard weevils and magical beetles. Before we get there, I wanted to touch on one thing we talked about. We have a lot of knives in my house, blacksmith-made knives. These kind of just like sit on my counters around here. This is actually made out of forge in the mountains here in Nevada. Very cool. This is not, but I found it earlier today. So now it will also sit on my desk with all the other knives. But because of stuff like that, I get a lot of different content. So I was talking on the internet about a blacksmith named Panic. I don't know if you've ever seen Panic Button, but he's known for this viral video. I will share it with you now. We will move on to other things after. Check this out.
First off, the strong smith is hogwash. Most of my contemporary smiths are pot-bellied bean poles that have to make 2 trips to bring in all the groceries. You don't have to hit it harder, you have to get it hotter. The average smith that has a really, really buff physique was either naturally that way or got that way by substituting power for proper ergonomics and performance.
Check this
out,
Where
most smiths differ is grip strength.
Look at this.
Grip strength is where most smiths are simply different from the average man. I mean,
oh my God.
We just aren't normal.
What we crushed it. Bro, that is not normal. If you've ever held a can of soda, it doesn't do that. Panic Button, bro, he's cool. If you ever watched any of his content, man, he's pretty dope. But let's get into it, man. Let's get into the Weevil video. Lindsay Nikole.
New backdrop stuff, new camera. Insects tend to get a pretty bad rep. Yes, humans usually like small animals with big eyes, but insects went too far with it and seem to be immediately disqualified. Except for one group, the Weevils. These tiny creatures seem to be otherworldly and even magical in appearance.
They are hideous, but they are hideous in like the mysterious, I can tell you the wonders of the forest kind of way.
Out of Harry Potter or Alice in Wonderland. Yeah. Weevils have become the most cherished insects around and even have a Reddit fan club called Weevil Time. Today I'm going to be introducing you to some with appearances and reputations that will surprise you. So sit back and relax while I show you some weevils I think that you will like.
Okay.
Let's get the general information out of the way. Well, as general as we can get. Weevils are impossible to generalize. They've been around for like 200 million years and have really become their own at a species level. One thing we can say for sure is weevils are tiny. We're talking millimeters. But what makes a weevil a weevil? Well, the majority of them have a rostrum, that elongated snout, cute as fuck, with chewing mouth parts at the end of it. Not to be confused with the proboscis that many insects have that are piercing and sucking mouth parts.
That's what I thought it was. I didn't know it was a chewy chew. I thought it was a sucky suck. You know what I'm saying?
Parts. No, these are chewing mouth parts.
Yeah.
They're objectively much cuter. Many weevils also have elbowed antennae, often coming off of that rostrum. The Reddit fan page often describes weevils as having boots and snoots. Snoots, obviously, the rostrum. And they also tend to have some pretty cottagecore feet. Most weevils can fly, and all weevils are beetles. Yeah. Beetles. If you've been watching my content for a while, you've probably heard me say the beetle fact at least once. I say it all the time, and I'm going to say it again. 25% of all discovered animal species are beetles. 1 in 4 animal species ever discovered is a beetle. Do you know how many beetles that is? 350,000 species, dude. There are so many beetles.
Too many.
And the biggest taxonomic family of beetles is the Weevils. Cerculeonidae. Cerculeonidae, also known as the true weevils.
True weevil.
Yeah. Fuck. It's the crab situation all over again. There are true weevils, about 83,000 species, and then another 12,000 species that are not.
Those, I do recognize both those things as weevils, though. But also, to the greater category, just beetles.
But still, technically, weevils. Some true weevils don't even look like weevils.
Okay, that's
like
crazy.
Bark beetles, which are so unweevil they got kicked out of the club and don't even get to be called weevils. And then other beetles, like biscuit weevils, are called weevils but are not true weevils and don't even look like weevils. It's all sorts of fucked up. And it's only going to get worse. If we total it up, the true and false weevils, it's about 95,000 species that have been discovered. Scientists estimate there's about 220,000 species total, which they believe will take another 650 years to describe.
That's
gonna
a
be
lot.
Absolute mayhem. Let's get back to the snoot, with the chewing mouth parts at the end. They use this to pummel into a variety of plants, depending on the species, and are often viewed as pesky little rats. Despite being the size of a grain of rice, their lifestyles can lead to the damage of crops on an incredibly large scale.
Thanks for bringing it up finally. I've been waiting for the crop part. Now, there's really cool stuff when it comes to crops. One thing that I love to talk about is the fact that there is an acceptable amount of weevil or weevil parts allowed in grains, because that's how many weevils we have. We have so many weevils that they allow for little parts and bits to be inside your grains because you can't stop them from getting in there. Just know that they have the gusto to get it dusto, in the dusto, in the crusto. There's weevils in your crust, yo.
Obviously eat the plants, but they also use the plants to lay eggs in them.
Yeah.
And once the eggs hatch, they feed on that plant even further. From our perspective, causing even more chaos and destruction.
Inside.
But from their perspective, getting a nice little nutritious meal as a welcome to the world. One of the easiest examples of this process is a weevil that I've talked about before, that look like they have shops to sell little
Look at him,
squishies and
look,
trinkets
little
and
hat.
big wizard hats. Everyone's favorite weevil, the acorn weevil.
That's the cutest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life.
Notorious for infesting the,
good
you guessed it, acorns of oak trees, making them absolutely useless. However, they do not give a fuck about that. As you can see,
don't give a
acorn
fuck.
weevils have a needle-like snout, ideal for drilling into young nuts.
Such a
Females approach
mean-looking
the
man.
mature nut in the summer and use their antenna to determine if the nut is suitable and
I also nut in the summer.
soft enough to get into. I don't know if anybody else has this problem, but you know those cardboard boxes that hold litter in them? You have to punch a hole into it with your thumb to get the litter out, and it's hard as
No.
fuck because they don't actually perforate it, so then you're just fucking sitting there pushing with your life to get it
No.
open, and then you give up.
We have knives. We have knives. We do not struggle to poke holes. Holes basically poke themselves around here in these parts.
Grab a sharp object, stab it in,
That's right.
make your own perforations because they couldn't do it for you, and then you finally get it open and it's just unnecessarily difficult. Well, that's essentially what the acorn weevils do. They make cuts on the surface of the nut to loosen it, and then punch through it and
Beep.
drill right into it, rotating their head, looking like an animatronic. Like, weevils don't look real. Once she's in, she lays her eggs into the hole she just made and leaves them be. The eggs hatch into babies and then feast on the inside of the nut. They stay there until sometime in the fall when it's time for the acorn to drop to the ground. The babies chew themselves out of the nut and go to their next home, the soil, for another like 2 years until they become an adult. Which honestly sounds like a pretty good setup to me. But some animals that like nuts,
That's a long time.
birds, and squirrels and us do not like that, since empty nuts that baby weevils were living in is not a particularly pleasant meal. Others actually turns out don't give a fuck under the right conditions. Researchers in 2007 determined that ungulates like deer and wild boar will eat infested acorns with absolutely no discrimination if the acorn supply is low. They figured eating weevil-infested nuts compared to no nuts was the lesser of two weevils. That aside, I think we can all agree that this particular look of weevil is working really well for them. So I'm going to introduce you to some weevils that kind of have the same vibe. The bull weevil, found in the U.S.,
Bull
Central,
weevil.
and South
That's
America.
a very
They like
popular
cotton.
one.
And actually in Alabama have a monument honoring them as if they are some sort of Greek god. But not because they are weirdly adorable.
Oh,
and have
that's
images
so
online
big.
of them riding bicycles and playing button guitars. Despite looking extremely polite, boll weevils are the most destructive cotton pest in North America and are considered the most hated agricultural pest of all time in the United States,
Wow.
costing the US like $20 billion since arriving. Quite the title for such a little guy. So boll weevils are originally from Mexico, made their way to Texas in 1892, and they
How?
immediately went for the jugular, invading cotton fields all over Texas, spreading to the southern United States, and even up, I think, into the Dakotas.
Did they make their way? Like, make my way downtown, I'm a weevil, I live here now. Or did we bring them into where they are now? You know what I'm saying? Like, which one is it? Which one was it, rather?
Happened quick. They traveled like 100 miles per year and were pretty resistant to pesticides because the eggs were inside the cotton bolls rather than the outside. And their life cycles are so quick that they could have like 13 generations born in a single cotton season, which is fucking nuts.
That's
This
crazy.
became a weevil war, with some fields apparently 100% infested, played some role in the Great Depression, and people just couldn't grow cotton anymore. The weevils were clearly winning. They tried to get rid of them with viruses, every single possible pesticide, and even imported fire ants from Guatemala at some point.
Which was my guess to the number one pest was actually fire ants, and I figured weevils would be in the top 5 somewhere. But fire ants are extremely invasive, so that's so interesting that they're above ants. Like, that's really, really impressive. I don't know if you guys can appreciate really how impressive it is that you can be more invasive than an ant, or like a wasp even. But that is very impressive.
By the 1970s, the largest eradication program the US ever saw was started, which has since been insanely successful. I think all of the boll weevils are gone for now, except for some parts of southern Texas. Okay, so what about the statue? How does this
Yeah.
play into it? Well, in 1916, a town called Enterprise, Alabama was feeling the wrath of the evil weevil, as was everywhere else.
Evil
Their
weevil.
cotton was obliterated. But instead of trying again the following season, that a lot of different areas did, they decided to switch up their crops, stop the weevil in their tracks entirely. And they became extremely successful with peanuts. They were raking it in. The Weevils indirectly put Enterprise on the map, and so they wanted to honor it. The statue originally had a fountain in place of the weevil, but then people came together, they decided they needed to put a weevil there instead, to honor it for its destruction that ultimately led to the town's fortune. All hail the boll weevil.
That's cool.
You might be
Indirect.
wondering why such a devastating weevil was put in a video titled, Weevils I Think That You Will Like. This would arguably be the weevil people do not like. And to be honest, I was not expecting to go into all of that. I didn't know any of that existed. I thought it was cute. I was just going to be like, look at this cute weevil. Look at it riding a bicycle. Look at it playing a button guitar. But then I read like the first thing about them and just went down this rabbit hole. And I found out about the statue and I obviously couldn't look back. So anyway, here's another one I think that you will like. Rhinostis latesternus. There's
I
no
do
common
like
name for
it.
this weevil, but they clearly need one. Maybe the big boot weevil. Please leave your suggestions in the comments, because we gotta figure this out. This weevil is notably cannibalistic in their larval stage. So
Wow.
maybe the cannibal weevil. The larvae have been observed committing hunger games on each other in the bamboo shoots they reside in, eating each other until only one remains. All right, so we've gone over the cute snoot weevils. Now get ready for the extensive neck weevils, specifically the Madagascar
this?
giraffe weevil.
Stop it.
You guessed it, Madagascar, and named after its, you guessed it, long neck. They were originally discovered in 2008, so not much is known about them, other than the fact that they look like giraffes. But they're usually found in trees called giraffe beetle trees, which
Is that the head on the top of this thing? Like, is that what I'm looking at? That's the head. Here is the head? Or is the head back here somewhere? That's the neck, and that's the head, and those are the antennae coming out. What a goofball. What a goofy goober.
trees called giraffe beetle trees, which are also only found in Madagascar, and they seem to live their entire lives on it. And like giraffes, the males seem to use their necks as weapons, fighting other males to impress the ladies, and maybe possibly for territory shit as well. There are multiple giraffe weevil species, many unrelated to each other, but they tend to be some of the larger weevil species that we know of. The largest, the New Zealand giraffe
what
weevil,
the
can
hell
get up
is
to like
that?
3.5 inches long. Absolutely gargantuan for a weevil.
That's
Kinda looks like a
huge.
French chef to me, you know? He looks like he serves souffle. The one that kind of has the same vibe as this, but like much worse, but also I think that you will like, is the hose nose cycad weevil.
That's
Quite the
cool.
smeller on this one. Well, not smeller, chewer. Quite the chewer on this one. The females actually hold the record for the longest snout compared to body length in weevils that we know of, getting up to like
What?
3 times the length of their body. They're found in southern Africa and born to the seeds of cycads. I don't know how they get around like this, to be honest. I feel like it's as debilitating as carrying around a 2x4 in the lamp section of Home Depot. The thing about weevils is, once you know a few, you kind of get the gist, you know what the fuck is going on. They like nuts and fruits and plant material. They weevil their ways into it. So these last few are just like quick, rapid fire weevils I think that you will like.
Okay,
First,
I'm ready.
the jewel weevil, found in Central America and South Florida, where it might
I've
have been
seen that
accidentally
before.
introduced in banana shipments in 2002. They like grapevines. And the polka dotted clown weevil, flightless weevils found in the Philippines.
Never seen that.
There's a variety of subspecies that have a variety of colors and like a variety of plants. And they kind of look like rainbow ice Dippin' Dots. Kind of like the glitter weevil, which have photonic crystals all over them, giving
That's
them
kinda
that
cool.
shimmery glow. They live in Central and South America. There's also the Schoner's blue weevil that looks like a Baja Blast, found in New Guinea,
like a
and the
Baja
willow
Blast.
weevil that looks like bird shit, found in Europe.
It
Would also
does
like
look
to
like
turn
bird
your
shit.
attention to another long neck weevil, Tracholysmus protractus. They are definitely in need of another common name as well, so let me know in the comments. There was also another weevil that I was having a hard time identifying. This one. It's so cute. It looks like a dog. It also happens to be the top image search result for stupid looking buck. I was having a hard time narrowing it down, so I asked my Instagram story if somebody could identify it, and it seems to have been narrowed down to the genus Leixus. This picture was also apparently taken in Yunnan, China, so that's where we're at for now. Nevertheless, I would argue this is
Okay.
my favorite weevil that I know of. All right, it's time
Looks
for
a
this
little
week's
sad.
questions. First one. One time I was in my dad's house and I saw a piece of dust move. Is it just the wind or some sort of buck? It could have been a masked hunter, a buck. Specifically an assassin buck.
Look at that!
Uses dust or lint as camouflage when they're a nymph, like a teenager. Their bites are painful and can lead to swelling, so don't pick it up. Next, what are some creepy
Thanks.
butterfly facts that you might know? Some male butterflies have organs called coromata, or hair pencils, that are inflated and produce pheromones to attract female butterflies. Not
That's
super
cool.
creepy in butterflies, but definitely can be in moths, like Creatonotus gangus.
Oh,
also known
yeah.
as the Baphomet moth. that I talked about in the Freak edition of What the Fuck Is This? It's just a bit unpleasant to look at. If you have a weird animal you want identified, let me know in the comments and I might feature it.
Thank you for your time. I learned a lot. I actually didn't know that there were that many weird looking weevils. I've seen like a lot of the old man weevils, but I think the gap in the education there filled in when they started classifying all of those types of things as weevils and not just like certain types of beetles. I'm making that up because I don't know when those things happen, but that's my assumption. Because how else do you not show me? I know there's a lot of stuff out there, right? But how come I've seen like 16 installments of Hercules beetles and never a giraffe weevil? That's always why we like to go to Lindsay Nikole vids. This is very in-depth information and it's such a fresh look at stuff that we've seen so much about. All I hear about weevils is how they are grain pests, how it teaches us how to switch over crops, which also helps our soil and our bottom lines, and the different pesticides that do not work on certain beetles because of that. So you literally have to get rid of the produce because it's one of the only ways to manage the population. Bringing in invasive species ruined way too much, and you can consume a certain amount of weevil waste. It's acceptable by the government. That's it. This video covered more than that. And that's really nice. I hope you guys enjoyed your time here. Any more questions or concerns, drop them in the comment below. Any other weird video suggestions, make sure you let me know about those too. Just a reminder though, the content you see is very different than mine. Share with me your world and I will share it with others. That's the most enjoyable thing we can do. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.